Don't get me wrong.
I respect it as a parent. I understand why he would do it, but I wonder to understand why lie about it for so long.
I'd stop calling it a lie.
Okay, why repeatedly say you're not going to and you do? And secondarily, for the part of this country, half of it that doesn't support Biden, doesn't know him personally, doesn't get to have phone calls, and they're just looking at a system that seems like it only benefits the people who are in power. What precedent does that set?
Well, here's what it sets. It's a precedent for all of us to open our eyes because we've elected someone who is in a similar situation, who didn't have a drug problem, who knew what he was doing, who clearly stood and said, I can do this. And he did it. So I think, for many, many reasons, this is very different than any other situation that we have ever dealt with. Because when we're talking about who gets a pardon and who doesn't get a pardon, this man, I think Biden had no intentions of pardoning Hunter.
Thank you, Mimology, for that great editing, and that was not a lie.
Afghanistan, it's a success. The border is secure. Robert Hur is a liar. The videos are cheap fakes. Biden has a cold. He'll never drop out. Oh, I'll never pardon Hunter.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the news that the media keeps burying.
When the revolution comes, where will you hide?
Those who are here committing crimes, robberies, shooting at police officers, raping innocent people, have been a harm to our country. I want to sit down and hear the plan on how we're going to address them. Those are the people I am talking about, and I would love to sit down with the Board of Czar and hear his thoughts on how we're going to address those who are harming our citizens.
You're open to that?
Open to?
To hearing what their plan is to deport some of these folks, and you think the city, in some circumstances, should cooperate with ICE.
Let me. You know what's interesting? And I was talking to the team the other day. I want you to all go back and Google Hillary Clinton and Barack Obama. Google what they said about those who commit crimes in our city and what they said in our country.
But want to hear it. I think we got to have tough conditions. Tell people to come out of the shadows. If they've committed a crime, deport them. No questions asked. They're gone. If they...
She's a Republican.
If they've been working and are law-abiding, we should say, here are the conditions for you staying. You have to pay a stiff fine because you came here illegally. You have to pay back taxes. And you have to try to learn English.
Oh,
you have to wait in line.
You have to wait in line. You have to wait in line. And everybody's cheering.
They said those who commit crimes need to get out right away. That was their position. So this is not a new position, you know, because in the state of in the era of cancel culture, no one's afraid to be honest about the truth. Well, cancel me, because I'm going to protect the people of this city. And if you come into this country, in this city, and think you're going to harm innocent New Yorkers and innocent migrants and asylum seekers, this is not the mayor you want to be in the city under.
And some people are going to say, yeah, but the crime is at its lowest. I'm like, no, it isn't. FBI admitted we didn't report everybody. There were 2 big police stations and they didn't take the numbers in because they're still counting, because there's so much.
We gave them the money because it was harder. If it was a government-run program, they could take the money away. If Trump won, and because it was a insurance policy against Trump winning.
So you know the president doesn't agree with you, so you created secret programs to keep funding the things that the president doesn't want. Interesting.
Guess who's going to jail?
I'm really wondering if that's really money of the citizen or maybe of somebody else just funding like George Soros. Or maybe you just want to launder money. Can be both.
Until the Trump people come in and tell us we can no longer give up money. I do environmental, climate policy things.
Really?
Yeah.
It's amazing. Is that stuff is here?
I mean, because I do like federal government climate things. Well, I have been doing that. But that might change. But
why?
So look at the EPA. So a lot is going to change.
Amazing.
Yeah. So I do, you know, the Inflation Reduction Act. Have you heard of it?
Yes.
Okay, Biden's climate law.
Yes.
Yeah. So I do IRA implementation. I work with like Biden appointees. The money that we've given out like tens of billions of dollars, like over the last year. Over the last year, we've given out probably like $50 billion.
$50 million?
Billion with a B.
$50 billion.
Yes.
Billion? These people are just getting drunk, maybe with the date or whatever, and be like, I want to talk how amazing I am. They snitch on billions.
$50 billion.
Yes, for climate things. So like to go work for one of these places, I think would be really cool.
What are the places that you've given them to?
It's only been a few weeks, so it's a little early, but like green banks. So they're like nonprofit institutions that are like making it more financially feasible to build renewables, to do like climate projects. I do implementation now, so I do like how do you spend $100 billion? How do you make sure that like they're the proper? Well, until recently, how do you make sure the proper like processes are in place to like prevent fraud and to prevent abuse and to like ensure that like we are funding like good paying jobs and that sort of stuff. Now it's just how to get the money out as fast as possible before they come in and like fuck.
Really?
Yeah.
You can do that?
To an extent, just like within reason. Yeah.
Good.
Yeah.
Why not? Because if it's not gonna,
basically that's where it all is now. I mean, now it all is like, it truly feels like we're on the Titanic and we're throwing like gold bars off the edge.
Does it really? You gotta feel weird.
It's weird. I mean, it's not good vibes. It's not good. I mean, everyone's very sad.
Who are the gold bars going to?
Nonprofits, states, tribes, cities.
Anything like in the news that I would know of?
Not yet.
Like any organization, like.
Well, they're all local. A lot of them are small, not like local nonprofits. So it's like a big thing that most of the stuff we funded, but the thing that we haven't funded yet are like the local nonprofit program that's like was going to be like a winter Kamala Harris administration program. So now we're just like getting it as quick as possible.
Right. Yeah. To the tune of $50 billion.
No, it's like $2 billion at this point. But yeah, we got most of it, like 90% of that. But
wow. Yeah. And what happens if they try to stop it? They can't?
When they come in, if you haven't gotten out the door, then they can stop it.
So in other words, people are funding stuff behind your back that maybe the government is going to say, hey, that's kind of illegal.
What's your take on the pardon?
The Biden situation disgusted me in terms of the pardon only from this standpoint, Chris. Nobody on the planet, you want to be a cynic and you want to act like you would be offended by something like that if you're one of those people out there, fine. But no one within reason would have a problem with him saying, it's my son. I love him. There's no way I'm sending him to jail. And I have the power to avoid it.
I totally agree. I would never send my son to jail.
Nobody would blame him for that. But that's not where he went. So I didn't have a problem to answer your question directly with the decision that he made to pardon his son. Boo-Boo the Fool knew he was going to do that. I don't care who he stood in front of or sat in front of and said that he wasn't going to pardon his son and he was just going to go by the letter of the law. Please, everybody and their grandmother knew he was going to pardon his son. But to come out and to start talking about how it's been a witch hunt and the Department of Justice and others were after him or whoever it was and, you know, the GOP rather was after him. Well, wait a minute. What have y'all been doing with Donald Trump all of these years?
Told you.
Now, you can make an argument about the legitimacy of the cases against Donald Trump compared to what wasn't legitimate, etc. That's not the point. The point is it was clearly politicized. You had folks on the left who were hell-bent on going after Donald Trump because they were determined to make sure that he couldn't run for re-election or that these elements would get in the way of him possibly winning re-election. And now we know why more than ever, because they weren't confident they would ever be able to beat him. He'd been a Republican nominee since 2016. He beat Hillary Clinton with the Electoral College vote. He wouldn't concede defeat in 2020, but he did receive over 74 million votes at that particular moment in time. And then you fast forward 4 years later, despite the 34 felony convictions, the 2 impeachments, the bevy of crimes that he had been accused of.
Which was free sponsorship from the Democratic Party.
The Republican voters out there, the conservative voters out there, and a lot of independents from various communities said, he's the guy we want, and I've said it on many, many occasions. It wasn't about him. Just like it wasn't about Biden in 2020, it was more against Trump. In this particular instance, it was an indictment against the Biden administration, what had been going on for the last 4 years, some of the things going on with the border, obviously inflation, of course crime in the streets, of course woke and cancel culture and all of that, it all played a role. And so for him to come out and to talk about that this was a witch hunt when clearly it could be argued that's exactly what you were doing to Donald Trump, or you assisted in doing, seems beyond hypocritical. And that was what disgusted me. It wasn't his decision. It wasn't him pardoning his son. It was the weak, pathetic explanation that he gave, which has most critics just shaking their heads and raising their eyebrows and saying, what nerve you have.
But at least we have it now on Twitter. With context, they use his word of the pardon word for word in the context. I love it.
They switched from saying Russian disinformation is the threat, so that's why the Pentagon's involved, that's why the state and CIA and FBI is involved, to saying, well, actually, domestic disinformation is a threat to democracy. So regardless of whether it's the Russians or not, we need to censor Americans to preserve democracy. And this happened in tandem with...
What examples were they using to justify this?
Well, they pulled off a cute trick where they doctrinally redefined democracy to mean a consensus of institutions rather than individuals. They had, when Trump won in 2016 and Brexit passed in 2016, they took this anti-authoritarian toolkit, which has for 80 years been the CIA's predicate for overthrowing governments. And really since the 1910s, when Woodrow Wilson announced that America's role is to make the world safe for democracy, we've long had a habit of intervening in foreign countries in order to liberate people from authoritarian control and bring them the gift of democracy. And that has always meant, primarily, that the government would represent the mass of individuals in the form of voting. When Trump won in 2016, at the same time that all these right-wing populist parties who were just like Trump also won between 2016 and 2018, primarily using free speech on social media and their popularity there, they argued that right-wing populism was the same authoritarian threat that left-wing socialism, left-wing communism was.
Now it makes sense. They're like, we are CIA, we do gangster stuff over there, we're just going to do it over here because now we don't like the populist over here.
Nope, stop talking, go to jail.
So they said, well, populism is the people's ground-up revolt against institutions, against government, science, media, against the NGOs, the experts, the academics. So what they did is they argued that democracy has to be defended from demagoguery. Democracy needs guardrails. We need bumper cars on democracy that go beyond what people vote for, because people voted for Hitler, people voted for Trump, and they were doing this at U.S. government conferences, by the way, in 2017. I can show you some funny ones if you're interested. But they were arguing that we need these institutional guardrails against people voting for the wrong person.
And ladies and gentlemen, the guardrails is emotion, empathy, joy.
Manifesting our nation.
Let me ask you this. What about what they've said in terms of black, particularly black men and Latinos, supported him more than they have in the past? Why do you think that is, and what do you have to say to black men and Latinos who were not in favor of supporting Kamala Harris?
Oh, honey, when your favorite niece and your 13-year-old daughter is raped by your alcoholic brother or the next door neighbor, and she tries to abort that baby inside of her from a rape, you're going to regret that. They want to keep women in their place. It's so disgusting. I can't even put words to them voting for her. They didn't vote for her, didn't vote because she was a woman. They didn't care that she was smart and powerful, educated, beautiful, kind, joyful, fearless. She would have taken care of this country. She would have protected the people. She would have surrounded herself with great minds. But keeping women in their place was more important to them. And black men, that was just shocking because, honey, he's going to give the military and the police permission to shoot you in your back, and there will be no immunity. So, baby, y'all done fucked up. You took every right from your children. Once again, there will be no social security and pensions and rights. This thing has said you will never have to vote again. He's going to be in charge of the military. We have fucked up. End of story.
You don't think it was a simple situation of looking at the economy, looking at inflation, looking at crime and saying, excuse me, providing and protect. And as men, that's what we want. And as a result of that, I mean, I voted for her. I wasn't voting for him. But speaking to men who felt differently, they didn't think about Roe v. Wade. They didn't think about stuff. They thought about the economy, money in their pockets, and safety in the streets.
Well, listen.
It couldn't have been as simple as that?
First of all, do you see women breaking in people's houses? Do you see women shooting each other in the streets?
No.
They voted because they voted for Trump because, I hate saying his name. They voted for him because they hate themselves.
I don't get it. Why do you care so much about men voting with you when you would have lost anyway if they voted with you? Oh, you care more about the emotional win, that democracy that you think is rather important.
Don't get me wrong, ma cosa ti tapong? Butta fire na mi blonde kush hash purple skunk creo yo colombici jam jam dur loqueta verdetta well.